Hey, everybody. Welcome to Losing My Religion. My name is Josh,
And I'm Ashley.
and this is the story of
How we lost our religion.
how we lost our religion, where we have come from, what we have experienced, the religious trauma, the issues with the church, where we have wrestled with our own beliefs and our faith and had to dismantle a lot of toxic beliefs and unlearn a lot of things, and kind of where we've come to today, where we come to the point of genuine belief and genuine faith and a lot of confidence in who we are and what we believe and what we know to be right. And so, yeah, this is kind of what that is all about. So, in order for you to understand where we're going, you have to understand
Where we've been.
where we've been. And so, that's kind of where we're going to start today. So, Ashley, how about you start a little bit about your background?
Yeah, so I wouldn't, I guess I did grow up in the church. Started going when I was like 4. A friend invited me and then was kind of there every time the doors were open. I was the reason my parents went. I was a Baptist church. So if you know anything about that, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. Started realizing very early on that women did not quite have the same rights within that sect as they did in the world.
Not
Essentially,
equals.
we were not equal with men.
Not even close.
And even as a young child, I saw that and I'm like, wait a minute, like I have a voice, I have things on my heart that I want to share, but I can't because I'm a woman.
Which had to be weird because knowing your family and particularly knowing your mother, my mother-in-law, love her to death. But knowing your mom and knowing the household that you grew up in, your mama ain't quiet. And she is
No.
not shy and she's not one to back down. Your mother is strong and has her beliefs and her opinions, and she is strong in those beliefs and opinions. She has
Yes.
no problem voicing those things. She has a very strong voice. And so it's interesting to me knowing the household that you grew up with the mother that you grew up with, then being in this church setting that's very opposite of what's being displayed at home.
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely a lot of strife within my own self and then the world that I was in. Because I too was not quiet in my beliefs and quiet in what I had to say, and took the old rule of seen and not heard.
Yeah, you still ain't quiet.
No,
You
I'm
definitely
still
not
not
seen and
quiet.
not heard.
No,
She's
you
all heard and
gon'
all seen.
you gonna hear me, boo. Okay. So what about your story, Josh?
So, I grew up in a cult. Let's start there. Through my life, I actually got involved in 3 different cults, legit cults, fit the definition of a cult. And we'll get into later why that happened and the patterns that kind of led me to being those things. But I grew up in a very Pentecostal, charismatic cult. What I mean when I say that is lots of speaking in tongues, lots of the Holy Spirit hitting people and then falling out, people getting healed, all those kind of things like you would see in a movie scene of a really rowdy church, very accurate to what I grew up in. And so I grew up in a very religious Pentecostal household. It was a cult. It was run by a self-proclaimed apostle and his wife who called herself
Mm-hmm.
prophetess. They controlled where we lived. They controlled where our money went. They controlled where we went to school. They had an academy they started. The kids had to go to school there. They controlled everything, every facet of our lives. They had their hand in. And if you left the church, you weren't just leaving the church, you were leaving the faith.
Mm-hmm.
You were leaving God. You were rebellious. You were, you know, public enemy number one, and they would do everything they could to discredit you and to take you down, to ruin your life if you left the church. Number one, because you knew too much. Number two, because how dare you, basically, in their eyes. How dare you
Right.
question their authority? Run by typical narcissists, like most cults are. Very charismatic people, very controlling people. Um, so yeah, I grew up in that, but same thing. My dad was in leadership. He taught the leadership courses at this church, and every time the doors were open, we were there. Our life revolved around the church.
Right.
I mean, they gave everything to this church. My dad and mom gave, particularly my dad gave everything to this cult. And so when he left, particularly during my mom and dad's divorce, when he left, they did everything they could to take him down. They did everything they could to discredit him and my mother. Later on when she officially left as well. But especially my dad did everything they could to take him down. And it had a very harsh and lasting, to this day, I think, effect on him.
What an odd thing for a church to do.
Yeah.
I feel like this first episode, we could almost say, what an odd thing. Because there are certain things that a church should be known for. And
Trauma's not one of them.
Trauma is not one of them. Neither is hate.
Nope.
You should not be known by that if you are a church. You should not be known by how stingy you are.
Greedy.
Lots
of money laundering in the church I came from. Pastor dipping his hands in the offering plate and taking all the money. And I actually was talking with a friend today. This friend, one of my best friends growing up, Andrew. I'll give him a shout out. My best friend growing up. I've known him since I was like 3 years old. We grew up in the same church, and we were hanging out with him today. And we were talking about some of this background, and me and him were reminiscing, and we were talking about how we remember particularly there was like a building campaign where it's like $100,000 or something. It was supposed to all go into these renovations for this building. Never happened. We raised the money. Everybody gave because God told them to give, and if you did not give, you were disobedient to God. But that money went somewhere.
What an odd thing.
Not the building.
And I think a lot of this podcast is going to be uncovering what a church should not do.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not talking about hymnals. We're not talking about that. We're talking about
worship style or those type of things.
The youth pastor hitting on youth. Or the church hiring an 18-year-old youth pastor that is still technically a teenager. Things the church shouldn't do.
Taking the money, traumatizing people, not including or not welcoming certain people because of their choices or because of where they come from or because what they struggle with or any of those things. Like, it should be the most welcoming place on the planet.
It should be a safe place.
It should be a safe place. You should be able to come as you are.
And unfortunately, right now, I feel like a lot of religious sects, S-E-C-T, not S-E-X, I think a lot of them have become a breeding ground for predators.
Yeah. 100%.
And not just physically sexual predators. We're talking about emotional, mentally, all of that. Just this predatory behavior that thrives and grows within a religious.
Yes. Now, do we believe? I think we definitely believe in the saying of like, come as you are, but don't stay as you are, in a sense. And what we mean by that is we do believe in transformation. We do believe that people should be able to come exactly as they are and should be able to find a safe healing place where they can heal, where they can be transformed, where they can become who they're meant to be and be safe enough to struggle through it.
And maybe this is a controversial thought, but I don't think transformation is linear.
Not at all.
As in any healing journey, it is not a linear journey. It is these highs and these lows and this middle ground where you don't know. It's all of those things.
Yeah, and I think faith is not faith until it has been tested.
Sure.
Until it has. Here's my thing. If you have faith of any kind, and if you have belief of God and who He is, whatever that is to you, but your faith, your God, if He is so big, if He is so strong, if He is so mighty, if He is everything you believe Him to be, and if your faith is everything you want it to be and believe it to be, then it should be able to stand up against testing. It should be able to stand up against questions. It should be able to stand up against hard times.
It should be able to stand up against corruption.
It should be able to stand up and call out corruption. It should be able to hold people accountable.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and so I think for us, the reason why we did this is because we wanted to bring a different voice to this subject matter that we feel like has not really had a voice.
Right.
We feel like on one side, we have a lot of our friends who are deconstructionists, and we love them and we understand them and we affirm them in the sense of where they have come from, the struggles they have had with the church, the corruption they have faced, the trauma they have faced, the ways that they have been violated by people in the church, and they have had to unpack that. They have had to heal from that. They have had to unlearn so many things from that. And we hear them, we affirm them, we understand where they are coming from.
And those friends have real PTSD from trauma in the church.
100%.
We're not talking about Grandma Ethel talked bad about you, and so now you're just upset. Like, we're talking about, like, they are having to go through therapy for years to undo that. I'm so sorry.
Yeah. So it's okay. We all sneeze.
Sorry.
So yeah, years of that stuff. I mean, and then on the other side, especially I feel like in my realm, your realm too, but especially in my realm of growing up in the belief circles that I grew up in, it was, how dare you question the man or woman of God? How dare you try to call somebody out? You rebellious person. You know, don't you dare speak against the prophet or the man or woman of God. You're calling hellfire. You're going to call a curse upon yourself. Like, God is going to punish you. Like, no, you believe and you just receive and you just decree and you just declare and you just stick to it, brother, and it's all going to be okay. And that's not right either. So we personally, we fall in this middle ground, which is, let me explain what that means. We have had our experiences that we're definitely going to get into with corruption personally. I just explained to you I grew up in a cult. I went to two others later on.
And there's many more cults to come.
And many more cults to come. You've had a lot of experiences with the church that we're going to get into as well. We've dealt with our own personal trauma and corruption and had to unlearn and dismantle a lot of our own toxic beliefs. We've
also seen a lot of friends go through situations maybe that we weren't directly in, and we have permission to tell their story. And even if you guys message in and tell us your story, we would love to share it on here however we can, because I believe and we believe in giving voice to those. That's
part of our mission statement.
Yeah. And in giving voice to that, it almost cracks that tension around religion.
Yeah, and I think it breaks cycles. It creates spaces for healing. It's what we believe. We said that in our mission statement. That's what we believe storytelling is. And so it's not just our stories we want to tell. We want to tell the stories of others. And, so we fall in this middle ground of saying, okay, what does it look like to dismantle all of this corruption and toxicity and trauma, while also still holding on to faith and belief? We do go to a local church. That is great. We do still believe that faith has its place in the lives of people. We do believe that there are places and houses of faith out there that are doing genuinely good work. Unfortunately, they're not the ones making the headlines or the stories. They're not the ones always that are prominent either. That's really sad. But we do believe there are those places for that. So we wanted to kind of give this middle ground of sharing these stories, calling out corruption, being 100% authentic and calling it what it is, while also exploring and saying what our journey has looked like of still holding on to faith and still holding on to belief and still incorporating that into our lives and finding other places that are places of healing and that do that as well, and giving hope.
And I would say that there's been times within our story where maybe I was holding on tighter to that faith than you were.
100%.
There may be times that you weren't holding on at all, or I wasn't holding on at all. And so, even that faith journey, again, is not linear.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
and
well,
that, and breaking that down and what it means to even question your own faith.
yeah. I mean, we'll get into this more, but I think there was, we just came out of a couple of years of all kinds of mess going on, and toxic relationships, toxic beliefs. I tell people I was not on speaking terms with God for. I like to say I was not on speaking terms with God for a couple of years.
While I was acting children's pastor at the
While
church
you were
that we
very
at.
active, yeah, you were very active in faith.
And
so,
just for you men out there, I did say children's pastor.
yes,
That's okay.
So yeah, you were definitely a lot more connected
Yes.
to faith, and you were a lot more you were holding on for the both of us at that time. I didn't even know what I believed anymore. I was really trying to. I was in survival mode in a lot of areas of my life, and so.
And I would say now we've almost switched places. Because as we'll get into that church that I was the children's pastor at, there was a lot of trauma that came from that, and things that I'm still working through, and sometimes my faith is not there.
Yeah, and I've come through this. You want to call it like a personal revival, of rediscovering who I am and rediscovering my faith and my connection with my faith and connection with God. And I feel like it's more concrete than it ever has been. I feel more secure than I ever have been. I feel more comfortable in my beliefs and who I am than I ever have been. But I don't think I would ever have been where I am right now in the strongest place with my faith and spiritually that I am right now if it had not been for that, dark season, that kind of the questioning and the night of the soul. And I think, again, your faith should be able to stand up against that stuff. So we're going to talk a lot about that. We've seen a lot of corruption. We've seen a lot of hurt. We've seen a lot of abuse of power in particular. A lot of abuse of power. And so we know there's a lot of we know there's a lot of you listening to us, and we've seen people already message us. We've seen a lot of people following us who we do not know. Welcome. So glad that you discovered us. That have reached out, or that we have been able to see, that are coming from all walks of faith, all sides of faith, belief and non-belief alike. And so we want to create a space, and we wanted to create a moment for you each week to feel safe and to hear our stories, to hear the stories of others, and to decide for yourselves. Basically, let your own self kind of be the jury as to what you see. All we can do is tell our story, tell it the best we can, be as authentic as we can, be as vulnerable as we can, talk about our faith and how important it's been to us. And then out of that, we hope that that journey speaks to you. We hope that it brings you healing in some form. We hope that it at least gives you a voice of some form. We hope, if nothing else, that you can sit listening to us, and if nothing else, kind of take in a deep breath, let it out and go, somebody else gets it. I'm not.
Yeah, and we welcome the disbelief,
the questions,
with the questioning. We welcome those that feel absolutely nothing,
that disagree.
We welcome those that disagree. Please disagree with us. Like, let's talk about it, because honestly, you may present something in that disagreement that brings light to something, perspective for us that we didn't have before, because our story is going to be our story based off of all of our backgrounds, our parenting, experiences, race, all of that is going to be different than maybe what you have experienced.
Don't talk about the race. We in the South.
I mean, it's all different. So we welcome that disagreement. Yeah. And in light of that disagreement, it's going to bring perspective to other people's experiences. So we're so excited for this journey, and we hope that you guys will join us.
Yeah. So stay tuned. All right. See y'all next time.
See you later.